How's it going, YouTube? I just wanted to do a handling video of short-tail pythons because I've seen tons of people handling them incorrectly, and I feel like might be a good idea to do one because I've got ones at a bunch of different ages, so I can show you techniques that I've found to work for the best way of handling them to make your snake calm, and if you have an aggressive snake, ways to work about to getting your snake to calm down for you, especially with people figure that blood pythons have really bad attitudes. But I figured I'd do a little video to illustrate some of the ways that I go about doing things. But this little one right here, this is my Sumatran Short-tail, and the best way I think about going about picking a snake this size up is find the head, make sure it's pointing away from you, go underneath with your palm open, and try and scoop it about 2/3, like halfway down the body, closer to the front half, and lift it up gently, and then use your other hand to support the back end of the snake. With bloods, because they're a heavy-bodied snake, it's best to try and just support the back end. If you get too close to their head, they can get claustrophobic and might get a little bit more jumpy and more inclined to bite. But if you handle them and support the lower half, they can slither about freely, and it usually makes them feel a little bit more calm and less apt to bite. But you can see, the best way to go about it is not to really grasp the snake or hold it in a place, is more to let it move about your open hands. If it chooses to, I wouldn't force it to slither through your hands. If it's just going to sit there, let it sit there. But otherwise, I'd say just leave it in your open hand. If you can fit them in one hand, that's okay. But the point is, you don't want to leave the back end hanging. Because they're a heavy-bodied snake and they got a lot stored up in that back end, if it starts to hang loose, they'll usually start to flail it around, and it'll make it more nervous in the front end, and that's the end with the pointy object. So you usually want to make sure that you got the back end supported so it feels safe and supported, so that you're less likely to get bit. Like I said, this is my Sumatran Short-tail python curtus. This is a black Sumatran Short-tail blood pythons. Just got it in Daytona, so it's still kind of small, but it's eating and it's about to shed, so happy with that. You can see, I figured that this is just the best way, and then when you're going to put them back, same thing. You just want to make sure that you're going to support from about here back, support the back end of it. I usually just let them down gently, and if the back end of them is still on my other hand, just let it be and let them go off on their own pace. Okay, with a little bit older snakes, I recommend that the best way to go about working with your snake, if you have an aggressive snake, is to use gloves if you have to. I prefer not to use gloves unless the snake is absolutely berserk, crazy, don't do anything except for bite you. But I find that the best way is to set yourself down on the floor, make sure you have enough room to set the snake out if you have to. Sit down on the floor. If you can get the snake out and with its enclosure down like this. And then the best way to go about it, I would say, is to just remove the hide box. I've got my Borneo Short-tail, my smaller Borneo Short-tail female in here. And the best way, like I said before, is to go with the palm out. You can even go over like this, but make sure not to press down on the snake too much. You more want to use it more like a hook and kind of scoop. And once you get that, lift. Like I said before, right around the halfway mark, so you're not too close to the front end, and then support the back end of the snake. Like I said, if you're using the heavy-duty gloves, it's a little bit easier to grab it, but you don't want to really make the snake feel like it's being grabbed. You want to make it feel more like it's being scooped up. It makes it feel like it's not being as threatened if you scoop them as opposed to grabbing them. Same as before, you want to keep your hands about halfway and then supporting the lower end of the body, allowing the front end to explore and go about as it may. That's the best way that I've found to work with bloods and most other pythons and boas, because if you, especially with some of the colubrids as well, if you grab them anywhere near their head, they tend to freak out, and that's when they turn around and bite you. So if you just hold them and support the majority of their body, they'll feel more secure in your hands, and you really won't have to, after a few handlings, regular handlings and whatnot, your snake will become more used to it, and you probably will not have to worry about being bitten. Of course, there's always examples. Everyone's got a berserk snake, so. She's really calm. Usually she gets a little energetic, but for the most part you just want to support the majority of their body and let them explore as they may. If you have to, you can set them down on the floor and start from scratch, straight from the ground. Let's see if I can lower this down a little bit. You see she's down on the ground. So what I was trying to describe earlier is if you're going to pick them up, don't press down on them. What you want to do is you want to kind of scoop and leave it in an open hand. Because the tighter you are around them, the more scared the snake is going to feel. Especially if you're going to be working near its head or near its face, I always recommend using open hands, because if you grab them like this, they can get freaked out. Especially with the blood pythons, they can get spooked quite easily. So I recommend using open palms when working with them. For the most part, blood pythons really get a bad rep, but mostly from wild-caught animals. If you buy captive-bred animals, they usually are not as big a deal. They're used to being handled. They can tame down much quicker if you do have one that's a bit of a problem, or one that does bite a lot. Working with them with gloves on a bi-daily basis from the time that they're small really increases your chances of getting a nice calm snake as an adult, especially with the blood and short-tail pythons. You can see this entire time the main thing that you want to be supporting is from about here on the snake down. If you're just supporting the front end, you see that they got a whole lot hanging back there, and they can get nervous quite easily. So the majority of their body will use what you want to be supporting, and then just allowing the snake to go about as it may. And you can see this is about yearling size. The Sumatran Short-tail that I had is young. It's probably only a month or two old, but this is yearling size. So this is at about a year old. You can see.